What's up, guys? It's your boy Justin. I'm doing a DC compact review, which these are like the manga size DC graphic novels. They go for $10 US, 13.50 Canadian, and yeah, I'm reviewing Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which I picked this up because I looked at the cover and I'm like, holy crap, this is obviously based off the this was obviously the inspiration for the new Supergirl film. If you read Superman Birthright, that obviously had some inspiration for the new James Gunn Superman film. So they're obviously DC's obvious and Warner Brothers is obviously doing something where like, oh yeah, all their new movies are going to be based off previous stories, and they're going to re-release the stories um, before the movie comes out, which I think is a good thing to do. I really wished Marvel did that with some of their properties. Like it took them how long? Uh, they stopped making Guardians of the Galaxy movies before they released an omnibus of the Alan Landing and Andy Diggle run of Guardians of the Galaxy, which was obviously the inspiration for those movies. Which I can't remember those two. And is it Andy Lanning and something? I can't remember both their names, but one of them's from like worked for Warhammer 40K writing novels. So yeah, those two guys. So I picked this up and I'm like, oh, I'll review it for the channel. Only to realize, like, holy crap, it's written by Tom King, which is like Jesus Christ. By the way, cool cover by Gary Frank. The interior of the interior art is not the same, dude. It's not the same guy. But the interior art's not bad. I'm not gonna complain about the interior art. But holy crap, dude. So I read the book, and it's written by Tom King, which Tom King I kind of try to avoid reading his books because the guy. I've heard this. I heard this from Perch himself that the guy. I'm pretty sure that this guy was ex CIA. So if the guy's, you don't go from working at the CIA to writing comic books unless there's something going on, right? It just come on. Like, so I went. I was reading the book. Oh my god. I was reading the book and I'm like, what is the propaganda going to be for this book? What kind of effed up messaging is there going to be in the book? And bingo, I was right. I was correct. The book is very demoralizing and very demoralizing, and it's very much like, man, like, of course people have to talk when I'm trying to record a review in my room. Uh, while I'm cooking a pizza. Christ. It's very demoralizing. Very subversive. That was the second word I was thinking of. But I totally forgot. And for a book that's like, obviously, it's kind of like a mix of True Grit with meets like Hitchhiker's Guide for the Galaxy, which you hear those two combinations. Like, how can they be demoralizing and like subversive? It's like, yeah, read the book and you'll know. So the book, which I kind of the first issue is actually really good. I actually like the first issue because the book, it's like I said, it's pretty much, it has this like, it takes place on an alien planet where you're introduced to the main character Ruth, who is this little girl. It's in like this, the planet is like kind of like Conan the Barbarian style planet, where the story is about this girl whose father gets killed by this king's agent called Creme of the Yellow Hills, who is kind of like an undercover agent whose job it is to find people disloyal to the crown and then slay them. So right away, okay, you know that right away they tell you, okay, like the killing was kind of justified.
Though we don't find out, though she doesn't know that at first, that the turns out, spoiler alert, because the book has this problem where it's like, oh, it was obviously he was changing the story as he went on, because he realized, oh yeah, the because like for people know feudal Japan, other medieval kind of pre-industrial societies, classist societies, if you the higher classes were basically allowed to kill people if you offended them. Like in Japan, that was a thing. I'm pretty sure medieval, Game of Thrones style, whatever, that was also a thing. So yeah, so turns out the king wasn't a traitor. The guy was a psycho, and the main and she's like a rock farmer, whatever that is, and she Ruth, despite having older brothers, they're too craven to go after his killer because the killer is a king's agent, right? A skilled warrior of the king. So she tries. So for some reason, Cram left his sword behind. So she goes and tries to recruit warriors to go after his killer, only for the they only for that not to be the case because they just tried to steal the swords. So it turns out Supergirl's on the planet with Crypto, which there's a funny scene where Ruth mistakes Crypto for being her husband, even though there's a scene where they're at the dinner table, Ruth and her family, and they have dogs. So I don't know why you would think that. And Supergirl is on the planet trying to get drunk because it has a red sun for her 21st birthday. So she sees like this guy stealing the sword from the little girl, and she decides to like intervene. And by the way, this chick does Ruth does not know anything about like spaceships, aliens. So she just knows, hey, this chick is kind of a mighty warrior. She tries to buy her service with the sword, even though she's like Supergirl's like doesn't want to do it because she doesn't believe in revenge. Killing is wrong, all that stuff. Which you get to see her spaceship there. Um, Only to get caught up in the quest for vengeance when Creme of the Yellow Hills uh gets told ambushes Supergirl at her ship and tries to kill her and Ruth, right? And because there's a red sun, she's in a weakened state. But because she's only been on the planet for less than a day, she's not entirely depowered. She still has some strength and some invulnerability because you see her get shot with arrows like multiple times, her and her dog, and they don't get killed. All right. But what ends up happening is like Krem escapes and gets onto the ship and leaves the planet, which I thought he would have just flew off. So the premise of the story is like Supergirl, and when you get a little flash forward here, I don't know if I can't remember if they actually explain how she got on got off the planet or whatever. Turns out like they get like on a one of those like cross country buses, but it's for planets. So like what ends up happening is Supergirl has no choice but to team up with Ruth and chase down Krem of the Yellow Hills because his arrows were poisoned and it poisons Crypto. And they have to hunt down Krem of the Yellow Hills so they can find out what kind of poison he used so they can cure Crypto so Crypto doesn't die, right? They leave Crypto in the hands of some some veterinarian or whatever, which that turns out to all be bullshit. So yeah, what ends up happening is like so at first it was the thing where it was all BS, right? Where Supergirl was not actually planning on killing Krem and helping her get the revenge. She was just there to. She recognized that the girl was stubborn and she was either going to get herself killed or waste her entire life looking for this guy, right? So that's why she went with her Ruth to uh, look for Krem, right? So to save her from being a murderer. Only for a while they're on the quest for vengeance, or the quest to find Krem, sorry. It turns out he ends up joining this space pirate crew called the Brigands that literally go around destroying, going around like the massacring people, dude. Like they go on, like, this is a very disturbing scene where they meet up with a survivor from a planet that was like ravaged by the brigands, because what they do is they go around killing people, but they ask for money first from the planet. So like if you don't have money to pay for your lives, they slaughter pretty much everybody. So yeah, this guy's like a quintuple, like lost his arms and legs, dude. So it's very dark, demoralizing story for even though there's scenes where it's very like there's all levity, right? It was like weird, really weird, like turn, right? And the action scenes weren't that good, if you're wondering. But yeah, so like the book is just like kind of tone wise, kind of, I wouldn't say it's all over the place, but there's like some very dark, there's some levity scenes, and then it'll get like super dark. All right, but yeah, like there's this one scene that just speaks like where it's obviously kind of, I wouldn't say woke propaganda, but it's propaganda where it's like we're supposed to believe that this planet that had kind of like apartheid system going on, where like you had this race of blue people and race of purple people. All the purple people got killed. And we're supposed to be like, oh yeah, the race of blue people are evil because like, oh, they didn't have enough money to save the entire planet from getting genocided from the space pirates. So like the blue people basically sacrificed the purple people to survive, and we're supposed to think, oh, they're super evil or whatever. And like, yeah, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, but I wouldn't call that necessary evil. That's survival of the fittest, or whoever has the most reason, whatever, right? You think the purple people, if they didn't have the more money than the blue people, they would have like fucking it's just stupid shit like that. And then there's the ending, right? Where we're supposed to believe, like, where we got the twist that, he was actually loyal. And he wasn't like an evil, like, he didn't talk shit about the king. Where that's the thing where, like, the book where it's like, okay, they obviously, he kind of realized, like, oh yeah, the Krem technically didn't do anything wrong in the first issue. So they kind of had to make him come off worse, as in the resulting issues, because these comic writers do read reviews. There's a very famous shitty Justice League graphic novel called Justice League Law, I think, by James Robinson, where people were trashing it after the first issues like came out, and like he was basically, the characters in the story basically like broke the fourth wall to apologize how shitty the fucking book was. You kind of have the thing here, but like the book is like really bad near the end, because it's like the ending is so fucked up, because the ending, like, the whole book is narrated by Ruth, and she tells you, like, in the beginning of the book that Supergirl kills, like, Krem at the end, and it turns out that did not happen. But what they did happen was worse. Was what happens is they fucking Supergirl and Crypto 300 years later visit Ruth on her planet, and you find out what really happened at the end of the story, because she's writing the whole narration is a plot device, not plot device, but narration, like a storytelling device, because she's actually writing. she's narrating shit that's she wrote in her memoir, right? So it turns out what happened is like Supergirl imprisoned Krem at the end of the book. At the end of the book, for 300 years, and waited till like he was basically about to die to free him, and waited till like he was remorseful, tried to like atone for his sins, right? Wait for that to happen, only for like like wait for him basically to be remorseful, because when he was first captured, he was not remorseful, right? Only for like Ruth to like kill him. Like she boxed him in the head. An old man begging for forgiveness, right? So it's very anti-Christian message at the end of the at the end of the book, man, which is like holy shit. So that's where it got subversive, demoralizing. So like yeah, I don't know. This is why it's probably not a good idea to read stories from like ex CIA agents, because there's some ulterior message or some fucking bullshit in the story, right? Which I'm kind of too low IQ to get to 100% understand it, but like something's fucking up. You know how much comic book writers are paid, right? So why the fuck would somebody who used to work for like CIA for the CIA go to write comic books unless there's like something going on right there? Yeah, I don't know. We need Jay Dyer to read and analyze this book. I mean, I'm sure he'll analyze the movie that's coming out. That's gonna star the chick from like fucking Supergirl. Which I'm still gonna see the movie, but yeah, this book was not good. I mean, it's a thing where it's like, and it's written so weird. The dialogue is so fucking weird, and it was the same thing that happened with that fucking DC Nightmare book I reviewed, where there was like a Swamp Thing story in there written by fucking Tom King, and there was this weird phrase that kept repeating, right, coming out, and it's like, dude, like is this some fucking MK Ultra like met like fucking activation phrase or some fucking shit. But yeah, this story sucked, dude. I'm definitely not gonna read more Tom King shit. But yeah, that's it. Peace out, dude.